but also requires, very specific direct instruction. That's why some of these cuts are so painful, because you're talking about literacy tutors and people who are the tier 2 level support. But you're right, George, the class size data, in terms of research, talks about it being 15 or below, there's a real impact. Otherwise, there's other variables that make it difficult to determine if class size is the factor that makes the difference. There is no doubt, I can tell you as a teacher, and these guys can tell you as well, there is no doubt as a teacher that if you have, to me, 25 is where it starts to get different. Anywhere between, 19 and 23, I think that's all very workable given, the average kind of a class makeup. But when you start hitting 25 or above, especially in the elementary level.
That's the tipping point.
And lower primary where all those pre-reading skills and all the really early reading skills, it becomes tricky. There are people in the public that are going to listen to us talk and say, well, I had 45 students and, I survived, and that's true. But as we've said before, it's a very different world for the kids
Somebody
today.
said it to me today, some adult said
It's a tested world.
I had 30 in my class, but I'm not an educator, but it would just seem if you've got 25 second graders, you divide them in little sections around the room versus having 18, that means you have one little more group in the corner of the room somewhere is that you have to run. I mean, it's got to make a difference.
Well, it doesn't. It's easier to provide the interventions. It's easier to know what individual students need. It's easier to manage the workload and the differentiation of the work of the students. There's a lot.
And again, remember 3 years ago, if you had problems with Johnny was having problems to read, they had someone to help Johnny read. Now they don't have the help for Johnny anymore.
The other thing is, at least somebody of my generation, I would ask them how many special needs children were in that class of 30. I would ask them how many children who had dyslexia or other learning disabilities were in that classroom.
Right.
Yeah, the complexities.
The fact of the matter is, they didn't
They
exist.
weren't.
Well, and right.
No, they weren't.
There were years when special education students weren't even in the classrooms.
Right.
And everything
Well,
was leveled and grouped. Plus, frankly, the kinds of work kids were doing, the expectations. We never took an exit test at the end of every grade.
You keep reminding us.
That matters, So it's the education of today is actually more intensive. I used to joke about how I could color code my plan book as a teacher with 5 reading groups and 5 math groups in the half hour that the music teacher came in, and have all the stuff pulled out for the week and have my lesson plans done. That's not the way it is anymore.
Right.
It's not the way it is anymore. And so the whole class size discussion is a very interesting one, isn't it? Because but I guess when we looked at, we just wanted to give you the data. I mean, certainly if we can have 21, 22 children in our lower primary grades, that's the optimal class size that we've all agreed on in the past. But it may, when we're talking $900,000 worth of cuts, and we're talking about the magnitude of these, that they were higher on the list, not because we want to see a kindergarten teacher cut or a first grade teacher cut, that we don't think those kids deserve to be in, the most reasonable class possible. It's just everything was in play, and we had to make some tough decisions.
If these positions weren't needed, we wouldn't have put them in the original budget we proposed to you.
Yeah.
We've been here an hour and a half. We haven't cut a dollar yet.
Yeah.
But when you look, so it seems like
We had to get all the information so we have more balance. Would you agree?
Agreed.
I think
But it might
we
be
had,
time to move on.
but I think
Well, I guess
Yeah, I already have my list.
we already have your list.
Well, of course you do.
I should circle them.
so. What do you feel the best way may just be to go
On the
down
list.
the list, and as painful as it may be, it seems as though the issues we need to be cognizant of are, based on all that we've talked about, is the class size. Once we start to hit 25, really being, starting to question what we're doing, as well as the impact that we're going to have on any of our special ed programs, which we've worked so hard to implement, which should yield some savings and help our budget in the next few years. Although we can't count on that, because every time I say that, something else happens. And also what any changes to the middle high school are going to do to accreditation, or whether no matter what our stance is on that, we have to be err on that side.
So Ann, what is your intention right now to go line by line and vote on?
I don't know that we
Because
need to vote line by line, but I think what we should.
I think I just wanted to tell you, and again, the more in the hour and a half we've been here looking at this, I'm more convinced that the position I'm going to take is that I think that we should forward a level services budget. Because I think this hybrid idea
It's
is
timely.
I don't know that we're going to come to agreement,
Yeah,
five of us, on okay, well, let's keep that, but let's don't keep that, or let's keep that, or let's reduce that.
I think we're
That's
trying.
just my. That's
I
just
think-
my-
I think we're trying to come up with a number. It's not even. It's not an A number. It's a closer number that we're going for, because we're still pretty early in this process. But we're not going to vote on our budget until next week anyway. We can't vote until the public has a chance to speak.
right.
right.
So
Yeah, but
that won't
next
happen
week,
until next week.
we're gonna vote on
Sorry,
a number.
Laura.
You're going to vote on a number. You're not voting on the lines. You're voting on
We're
a number.
voting on a number, so I think the idea here is to
You
get
get a
us
sense what it looks like.
to where, somewhere between 11.5 and 12.5. Do we want to go or 11.6 and 12.5, whatever the precise
You gotta be
number
able
is?
to justify that number, and if we don't decide what in our minds is cuttable, how do we justify whatever number we pick? It's kind of like that bus fee that he came up with. Yeah,
called
Terry came
negotiation.
up
Well,
with.
are there
Yeah,
anything,
$20.
are there any things
We're
on
gonna
this
debate
list
it.
you can agree to?
Well, I was going to say, if we can quickly go through this and say,
This
this
hard debate.
this is a no, this is...
Like
you know,
librarians. Do we agree that there's no librarians in our schools? Yeah, then we come to a conclusion and librarians are gone. I think it's sinful, but that might be, we're gonna need parent participation. We already have parents in every classroom as aides now, right?
We have a lot of parent
You
involvement.
know, my wife's a math aide once a week in our classroom, and I think there's one every day, So it's, now we're asking for, and we probably have it, parents in the libraries, I don't know, but I'm assuming we probably do already. Do we? I don't know.
I know at Pearly we did when my children were
Yeah,
there.
I
I
think-
don't know.
Well,
if
I
that's-
think-
but
I
I
guess
think
the point I'm making is that if we level service the budget, then we're agreeing to what we agreed on last year we needed, right?
yeah. Now how? I guess then how do we bridge the gap of $1 million?
Yeah, how do you fund it?
How
You
are
gotta
we
go to the
gonna?
finance committee and say, we picked this number because here's our logic behind this number.
You can
That's-
say that all day long. So then the next question comes down to how do we fund it?
Yeah.
So when we say how do we fund it, is there something we can do to hold us over in free cash or stabilization money?
Right.
Not $1 million. That's not going to be the
Right.
right number.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at an override, and then if the override fails, you're looking at $1
You're
million
looking at these
override
cuts.
is that's like an 8%. That's probably an 8% tax increase, just for the schools to keep us where we are today, and with the school system still on accreditation warning.
And a school next
Yeah,
year.
that's why you're looking. That's why I think you're looking at a midpoint. You can't look at level services. In my opinion, is unrealistic. I think we're setting ourselves.
I
up.
agree. I agree.
Now, is that what we like to have? Obviously, but I think
It's
gonna be a tough
unrealistic
one.
financially. I
Financially.
think from an operating standpoint, it's
No, it's the
the
right-
bare
I think
minimum
it's the
of
right
what
answer.
we need. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's more of what's the right number? Is it $500,000? Is it 250? $500,000? 750? $250,000
Well, if we
increments.
agreed, if we agree these are the right order, this is the right order, and I'm sure that's debatable, but then, and how deep on this we could, go with good conscience, and then you come up with the number at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you go down to something like if you don't want to cut middle school or anything, if you go down there, you can get $378,000 is what you get to before you cut
What's the
start cutting
first- the first page?
exploratory.
Is that what you said?
Well, I'm just saying, it depends on how far down you want to go, right?
Well,
If
isn't
you
it
were saying-
number?
If you put it,
Well, that's right. Because
Yeah, it's
if we
It's a
assume
running
that we're
cost.
if we, and I'll say that as a temporary statement.
Yes.
not.
If we assume, assume the fees are
Yes.
what they are as they're proposed as self-sufficient, then you have all these items on top that would
That's correct.
become permanent reductions, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So whatever's left over is what's going to be the additional money we would
Right.
be adding to our level funded budget, plus the $27,000.
right, what did we say? What were we thinking, $110,000 a percent?
115,000 is
Okay,
1%.
so,
of
you
the
know,
budget.
so if you think about that, right, so.
Well, I want to go over a different dynamic because are you not here next week?
And you're not.
You're not
And
here.
I'm not
That's
here
correct.
next week.
That's why we don't discuss
right.
these fees and all
We
this
have to have
has
a
to happen
discussion.
tonight.
We have to
As
discuss
has
this tonight.
to be.
You're
Just,
going
that's
to the FinCom.
And at least
What?
come up with parameters. Again, we're not voting on the specifics because
Right.
in the end,
Right.
once we agree on what the number is,
Oh,
the superintendent's going to have an opportunity to review that part of it. We're going to have newer information at that point. So, but in the end, though,
Well,
we
there's gonna be anything
we
earth-shattering.
philosophically have to agree on certain
Right,
positions.
I think that's why, yeah, that's exactly correct.
Okay. That's why it's called the budget workshop.
That's
Correct.
right. Shall, do we,
So the,
which one do we wanna sell? Fees first or the budget first?
Or do you wanna say something flat, like, we're gonna have a 3% increase?
3%
that's a good
And
tough
it's
increase,
one.
gonna be 345, and then
3% increase of what?
Over
level
levels.
funding.
Over level funding, okay.
Then we have to go in and figure out what
That's not
that looks
enough.
like. That's not enough, okay. Well, I mean,
And why is that not enough?
I'm just looking at what I.
He's probably going down the
On
list
my
and
list.
coming up
Yeah.
with 300,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at what I
45,000.
have
First
left
page gets you
and
there.
345. But that's again, that's just my. I'm one
Yeah.
of 4 voters.
so how far what was the total you were
Loud,
looking at,
but
George? What was the total you were looking
I
at?
just had in my head it was just more than
I believe
345.
the
Okay,
company's
because
the one that
I was
tops
looking
the
at
most.
going down the list. I guess then you'd have to figure out what you're,
Yeah, I think it,
you gotta figure out what you're gonna take off, maybe.
and if you go with
Or-
the
Or what
idea,
things you can live with.
right,
Well,
And then-
again,
and what's gonna be
not
most
to get our preschool
impactful,
parents upset, but I would be less pained by the one Pearly. Is that a good way to put it? Less pained.
Mhm.
The one Pearly reduction,
Well, there's 2 pearly reductions, there's a K and a one.
and that.
Yeah, but on the
this,
first-
this was the K
yeah,
Okay, you're looking at the K, okay,
because that's a class size of 19 to 20.
yeah.
And then if I look at Pembroke, the class size would be 22 to 23
mhm,
after the cut.
Yes,
Okay, so then that's again we're saying under
that's why it's in
25.
that position.
And I understand. No, I understand. You have to defend each one. I'm just.
Not
I'm just
defending
giving
anything,
my
I
thoughts.
can't defend any of these.
And then we have the second grade. That goes 19 to 20.
I mean,
Oh,
grade,
not the second grade,
grade 3,
grade,
Where?
it's a 3.
Current and second grade. They're oh,
Yeah, yeah, but
oh,
it's grade
oh,
three.
okay,
Grade
grade 3.
three.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the column. So that would be priorities number 8, 10, and 11. And then the department heads. I'm not going to lose sleep over that.
What about the grade 1 teacher, did
That
you
was
skip her?
nothing. No, I didn't realize that. I thought it was incorrect. That was a kindergarten teacher.
so
I would
grade
say-
1 is
say grade
okay?
1.
You touching the special ed on that first page?
No, I didn't.
You
And then-
left it there?
Yes.
Yes.
And then the literacy coach and the reading coach, the 1.5.
The whole one?
There's the whole and the half.
The first is the half.
Yes, so both. No, that's just me.
Yeah.
Did
Okay,
you?
that's just I'm just.
You gotta
We
react.
got to start the conversation somewhere, right?
Yep,
I don't take anything personally, so. So that's what I would look at, and then of course that we have to have a discussion on fees. So that's priorities one.
You touch
through
the high
five.
school.
Well, you didn't-
I don't
you
want to
didn't
touch the high school at all.
yeah, I think, based on the conversation we had yesterday while waiting for the accreditation person, we've already made changes there that are gonna put us on a slippery
And for
slope.
the record, I have no children in the high school. Just so the public knows.
Oh, for the record, neither do I.
That's right. Yeah, so we only have one member with, so that's.
Yeah, and the member that's not here doesn't have any in the high school.
But she can't vote tonight anyway.
Right, but,
So George, are you, if you're looking at all of the front page, the grade 1 and department heads, and then the reading coach, you're looking at, what, 320 plus 61, so you're looking at 381.
Something like that.
Out of the 872.
Right.
That means I would be talking about adding the difference back to our budget request.
Okay.
But that's assuming
Oh, you
the
would make
fees
that,
are all
those would be the
100%.
cuts you would make, got it, got it.
So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those are all the self-funding things,
Right.
plus the 10,000
Right.
supplies. Then 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 19, whatever that comes up to be, that would
That's right,
reduce
you
the
gotta
872.
take 6 and 7 out.
6 and 7.
He didn't touch the special ed.
I thought he left it, he told me he left it.
Yeah, and
yeah, he didn't touch it.
Oh,
You went
did
from
take
13, you left
You should
14?
take that out.
The library?
It's gonna be fun.
You'd have to close it. You're not going to have parent volunteers
You can't.
every
Yeah.
single day, and that's a teacher release time, right? Isn't that when the teachers they're doing team things at that point? So the specialists fulfill that scheduling gap. You can't rely on parents to do that
What'd you do
for
with
180
15?
days.
We should have numbered these, that's a
You
good point.
do have a number.
We do have a number.
You got
Oh, we
numbers.
do, okay,
Yeah.
I've got